Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The sun was beating down hard on the gravel behind my brother-in-law's mechanic shop, and the smell of overcooked hot dogs was already mixing with sweat and cheap beer. My nephew Cody's graduation barbecue was in full swing. Balloons tied to folding chairs, kids chasing each other between workbenches and engine blocks, and about 30 relatives trying to out-talk each other over a Bluetooth speaker blasting 90s country. I was standing near the cooler with a glass of iced tea, trying to stay out of the way, when I heard my sister Darlene's voice cut through the noise. "She's always been the tinkerer in the family," she said, nice and loud. "Fixes up engines, plays around with wrenches. Y'all remember how she almost finished her engineering degree? People laughed, not mean laughter. More like that polite, confused kind, where no one's sure if they're supposed to agree." Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. My name's Melissa Carter. I'm 38. I live just outside Stillwater, Oklahoma. I smiled tight and sipped my tea. No one made eye contact with me directly, but they all heard it. Darlene was just warming up. "Some folks just aren't cut out for the real engineering work," she went on, waving her solo cup like a baton. "Melissa here, she's the practical one. Nothing wrong with that. The world needs folks who know their way around a busted water pump." A few uncles nodded, like that somehow confirmed I belonged on the side of the highway with a rusted-out socket set and not a seat at the real table. "And then we got Cody here," she beamed, pulling him next to her. "Georgia Tech, Robotics Division, full ride, top of his class." That got an actual cheer. People clapped. Even Uncle Frank raised his beer. I kept my face straight, leaned back against the shop's siding. The cold tea was the only thing keeping my hands steady. "Must run in the family," someone said. Darlene laughed. "I mean, not everybody in the family, obviously." That one stung more than the rest. Nobody said anything, but they didn't need to. More voices piled on. "Ain't that one of the top schools? You think he'll be working for NASA? Robotics, that's the future. Big money there." I stayed quiet. Didn't argue, didn't correct them. Just smiled like it didn't matter, and kept sipping my iced tea while they went back to talking about my almost degree, like it was a quirky phase. No one noticed I hadn't said a word all day. I had barely gotten 3 sips deeper into my iced tea when Cousin Jake, the one who ran the NAPA store over in Perkins, came swaggering over with a bottle of Bud and that look on his face like he'd just thought of something hilarious. "Not everyone's meant to invent stuff," he said, loud enough to cut through the conversation. "Someone's got to change the oil." That got another round of polite chuckles. Jake winked at me like we were sharing some inside joke, but I didn't smile back. Darlene leaned in, jumping at the chance to fan the flames. "Melissa always did have those big plans back in the day," she said, putting air quotes around the words. "Mechanical engineering, right? You went all the way out to Kansas for that. What was it? 2 years? 3? 5, Jake said, raising his eyebrows like he'd just cracked a code. "Didn't finish though, right?" "She didn't," Darlene said, like it hurt her soul to say it. "Wound up back here, fixing up farm trucks in the same garage she used to build soapbox cars in." Uncle Frank, still in his army camo cargo shorts like he just walked off a base, chimed in with a half smile. "Some folks build the engines," he said. "Some folks just keep them from breaking. Nothing wrong with that." That line got a few nods and mm-hms from the older folks nearby. My mom, sitting under the pop-up shade tent with a paper plate on her lap, called over, "You know, Melissa always struggled with algebra back in high school. She got through it, but Lord, I had to hire that one tutor just to help her pass." She was talking like I wasn't even standing 10 feet away. "I remember that," Aunt Rhonda added. "He was that skinny boy with the lazy eye. Smelled like rubber cement." My dad, who had been half listening and half looking for another beer, tossed in his usual filler line. "You were always more of a hands-on gal," he said, popping open a Coors Light. Nothing wrong with that. They all kept talking around me like I was a bench on the side of the road, something old and familiar, but not worth looking at too long. Cody stood off to the side, his soda can clutched in both hands like he didn't know whether to drink it or run. He gave me this quick glance, the kind you give a dog you feel sorry for but can't help. I met his eyes for a second and gave him a small nod. He didn't smile back. Then Rhonda dropped the cherry on top. "Ain't nobody changing the world under a lifted hood," she said, pulling the elastic on her blouse out to fan herself. I mean, I get it. Working with your hands and all, that's good, honest work. But let's not act like it's going to change the course of human history. Jake pointed his beard toward Cody. Now this one, he said. This kid's going to make machines that think for themselves. Build robots that walk and talk, right? Cody didn't say anything, just gave a little shrug and a tight smile. I could tell he hated the attention, but he wasn't about to stop it either. Darlene beamed. That's why I told him, you stick with your books, don't end up like your Aunt Melissa, covered in grease in a barn somewhere. Someone behind me coughed. One of the cousins, I think. But no one spoke up. I just stood there, sipping my tea, still quiet, still letting them talk. My throat burned, but not from the heat. They weren't even being cruel on purpose. That's what made it worse. They believed every word coming out of their mouths. They really thought I'd failed, that I'd peaked at tinkering in a dusty garage. And none of them, not one, asked what I'd actually been doing the last 10 years. They already had their version of me locked in place. And that version didn't invent things. It just kept stuff from falling apart. Jake took another swig of his beer and leaned against the tailgate of Uncle Frank's truck, like he was settling in for the night. You know where the real innovation's happening. He asked no one in particular. Places like Tesla, Boston Dynamics, labs with billions in funding, not backroads garages with toolboxes from the 90s. No one argued. He turned toward Cody. Your program at Georgia Tech, y'all working with AI integration yet? Cody nodded a little. Yeah, second semester. Neural mapping and sensor logic design. Someone whistled. Rhonda, maybe. Darlene clapped her hands together. See, that's the future. That's real engineering. Robots, electric vehicles, SpaceX. I mean, no offense, Melissa, but she let the sentence hang there, like she was giving me a chance to fill it in myself. I didn't. I just smiled like I was enjoying the breeze, even though the air had turned thick and itchy with dust. You're just fixing what other people smarter than you invented, she finished, with this little shrug, like it was just the truth, nothing personal. Tanya, one of the cousins who used to cheat off my math homework back in high school, chimed in next. I mean, what you do is still important, she said in that phony teacher voice she used since she became a receptionist at the middle school. But it's kinda like janitorial, right? Like, it keeps things running, but doesn't really change anything. Jake laughed. Exactly. You don't need a genius to swap out a belt drive. I gripped my glass tighter. My fingers were starting to sweat through the plastic, but I kept smiling. Meanwhile, Darlene said, this kid's out here learning how to make machines that could, I don't know, save lives. Build prosthetic arms, run search and rescue missions. Cody shifted his weight again, looking down at his shoes. He didn't look comfortable, but he also didn't speak up. I was reading this article the other day, Rhonda added, fanning herself with a paper plate, about how drones are delivering organs now, like for real surgeries. Imagine designing something like that. That's the kind of work that matters. Cody could do that, Darlene said. He's got that mind. All the brains in the family skipped a generation and landed right in this one. The circle laughed, a few of them clinking drinks. Plus, Jake added, all the funding goes to stuff like that now. Robotics, EVS, green energy. They're not throwing grants at people patching carburetors. Darlene snorted. I mean, Melissa's great with her hands. Always has been. Remember when she used to pull apart Grandpa's lawnmowers just to see how they worked? Oh yeah, Rhonda said. You'd be knee-deep in metal, covered in oil. But you never built anything new. Just took stuff apart and hoped it'd go back together. She still does that, Jake said, laughing. I saw her out by the shop last winter under that busted Ford tractor. Looked like a damn snowman made of diesel. That got the biggest laugh of the night. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and took another sip of tea, kept my jaw relaxed, smiled like it didn't matter. They went back to talking about Cody's robotics program like I wasn't even there. Someone brought up scholarships. Another talked about internships, government work, NASA, the possibility of getting published before graduation. He might change the world one day, Tanya said. Just imagine. I didn't have to. My dad's voice cut through their chatter like a rusted saw blade. He had parked himself in a lawn chair with his belly hanging out from under an old OSU t-shirt, beer balanced on his knee. Y'all remember when Melissa went off to that community college? He said, grinning like it was a joke everyone loved. 2-year program? Took her what? 5 years. Lord, I thought she was going to be there longer than the professors. People chuckled, not loud, but steady. I stared at my tea, the ice half melted, swirling in circles. Darlene jumped in right on cue. That's why I told Cody, she said, reaching for his shoulder. Just don't end up like your Aunt Melissa, stuck in a dusty garage forever. Dreams are good, but they don't pay the bills. Cody pulled his arm back slightly, eyes on the ground. Jake laughed, leaning forward on the tailgate. What do you even do out there, Melissa? Besides tinker, I heard you started a YouTube channel about engines. How's that going? 100 views, 50. The laugh that followed was meaner this time. I didn't even have a YouTube channel. Never had. My mom, still under the pop-up shade tent, spoke up next. Sweetheart, she said, softer than the rest but still pointed. Maybe it's time to just accept you're not the genius type. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone can be Einstein. Some of us just do honest work. Rhonda snorted into her cup. Einstein, she muttered. Darlene let out a short, sharp laugh. More like Einstein's mechanic. Jake slapped his knee. Good one. I forced a smile so hard my jaw ached. My fingers tightened around the glass until the plastic made a cracking sound. Nobody noticed. Dad chuckled, still going. I mean, she's always had that engine hobby, right? Out there at all hours. Must be fixing a whole fleet of tractors or something. Aunt Rhonda leaned toward my mom. Does she even make money off it? My mom shrugged. I don't ask. She keeps busy. Jake tipped his beer. Busy don't pay the light bill. Darlene's voice rose above them again. At least Cody's on track for something real. Robotics, labs, grants, government work, that's the future. Not just patching up old engines for old farmers. Their words started blending together, heat and laughter pressing against me like a wall. I took a slow breath through my nose and let it out the same way. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket, a sharp chime, bright and clean against the noise. The conversation dipped for half a second. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, thumbed the message away, and slipped it back into my pocket without saying a word. Darlene arched an eyebrow. Another mower broke down, she asked, smirking. I didn't answer. I just set my glass down on the nearest table and reached for a napkin, dabbing at my hands like I was wiping off grease that wasn't there. The circle went quiet for a heartbeat, then shifted back to Cody, their voices rising again about internships, labs, and bright futures. I stayed where I was, standing straight, letting the heat roll off the blacktop and into my shoes. Darlene's eyes flicked to my pocket as I slipped my phone back in. What? She said, smirking. Another broken-down mower to fix. Or maybe a riding one this time. A couple of cousins laughed. Jake muttered, Bet it's a carburetor this week. I didn't answer. I just reached for my tea again, the cup slick in my hand from condensation. My heart was drumming under my ribs like it was trying to warn me of something. Then my phone rang. Not a text, a call. The ringtone cut straight through their noise like a blade. Everyone went quiet. Even the Bluetooth speaker seemed to drop a beat. I pulled the phone out. The screen glowed bright against the sun. Caller ID, National Innovation Forum, Washington, D.C. For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but I didn't. I swiped and put it to my ear. Miss Carter. A crisp voice said, professional, clipped. This is Angela Meyer with the Department of Energy. We need you in D.C. tomorrow morning. The press conference cannot proceed without the lead inventor's approval. Every word landed heavy. Around me, no one moved. Yes, I said steady. I'm here. Congratulations, she continued. Your sustainable combustion engine prototype passed final review this morning. Independent verification confirmed a 70% global emissions reduction. The valuation is projected in the billions, multiple patents pending final signatures. We've been instructed to request classified briefings with your team as soon as possible. My fingers were tight on the phone, but my voice stayed calm. Understood. We've already arranged transportation, Angela said. A car will pick you up tonight from Stillwater Regional. The DOE has media waiting for statements. You'll be briefing 3 federal committees before noon. I felt every set of eyes burning into my back. I'll take the first flight out, I said. Please coordinate with the DOE liaison and forward the finalized specs to the media team. Yes, Ms. Carter, she said. We'll handle all logistics. Thank you. I ended the call. Silence stretched across the yard like a tarp. A fly buzzed near the ketchup bottle. Somebody shifted their chair. The metal legs screeched against concrete. I set the phone down on the table, screen dark, and reached for my napkin again, wiping the edge of my hand even though there was nothing there. The paper tore a little under my thumb. Nobody spoke. Darlene's smirk had frozen midair. Jake was staring at my phone like it might explode. Rhonda's hand hovered over her drink. The only sound left was the ice sliding in my tea as I lifted it to my mouth and took a slow drink. The last sip of tea went down smooth, still quiet, still cold. I set the cup down and looked up. Nobody had moved. Darlene's beer tilted in her hand, sloshing up the sides. She blinked like her brain was still buffering. Jake had his mouth half open, stuck somewhere between a laugh and a question he hadn't figured out how to form yet. My dad shifted in his chair, scratched his neck. "Wait," he said slowly. "You invented that engine they've been talking about on the news?" I looked over at him and gave a single nod. Cody had his phone out now, typing fast. His eyes jumped back and forth across the screen, his thumb frozen halfway down. "Aunt Melissa," he said, his voice sharp with disbelief. "It says you're the lead inventor at Carter Dynamics Labs. That's your company." "Yeah," I said casually. "Started it about 8 years ago." Rhonda let out a soft grunt, digging in her purse for her phone. "She's lying," she muttered, almost to herself. "This some kind of prank." She started typing. 2 seconds later, her eyebrows shot up so high they disappeared under her sunglasses. "You testified before Congress?" she asked, her voice rising. "That's you." In the navy blazer, talking about emissions reform. I nodded again. "That was last spring." Tanya gasped, "You won Engineer of the Year." She held out her phone, eyes wide. "The National Award. Not just Oklahoma." "Yeah," I said, brushing a hair off my cheek. "A few years ago. Been busy since then." I wasn't bragging. I wasn't rubbing it in, just stating facts. Plain and clean. Darlene's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Nothing came out. Cody kept scrolling, eyes locked to the screen. "You spoke in Geneva," he said, "on global energy policy. This says your engine could change the whole transportation sector by 2030. Jake took a step back like someone had shoved him. "That can't be right," he mumbled. "You've been working in a barn in Oklahoma." "That's where I built the first prototype," I said, shrugging. "Second version came out of a converted chicken house." Rhonda let out a sound that was half choke, half laugh. "That ain't real." "It's all real," Cody said, scrolling again. "DOE funding, private partnerships. You're listed on 32 patents." "What the hell?" Tanya held up her phone. "There's a TEDx talk. You're literally explaining combustion redesign to a packed theater." My dad rubbed his face like he was waking up from a nap. "You told me you were working with engines. I thought you meant like local engines, farm stuff." "I do work with engines," I said. "I just don't stop at fixing them." Jake finally spoke again. "All this time, you've been playing dumb, letting us talk to you like you're some backyard grease monkey." I turned and looked him dead in the eye. I wasn't playing dumb. "Y'all were just real confident I didn't know anything worth hearing." He shut his mouth. Mom didn't say anything. She was still frozen, her cup of potato salad halfway to her mouth. Darlene looked down at her drink, like it might offer her a way out. "You could have told us," she said quietly. "You never asked," I said. "Didn't seem like you needed any clarification." Uncle Frank gave a long exhale, standing up from the cooler. "God damn," he muttered. "She fixed climate change in her barn." Cody laughed. It wasn't mocking. It was half shock, half admiration. "It's not fixed yet," I said, "but it's a start." Nobody seemed to know what to say next. They just stood there, blinking at me like I'd grown a second head. So I picked up my phone, checked the time, and tapped out a quick reply to Angela to confirm the flight. Behind me, I could hear Rhonda whispering to Tanya. Cody was still scrolling like he couldn't stop himself. Jake hadn't moved. The sun was starting to slide behind the shop, casting long shadows across the gravel. "Damn," my dad finally muttered. "That's my girl." It was like someone kicked over a wasp nest made of cell phones. Every aunt, cousin, and half-drunk uncle had their heads down now, screens glowing, fingers flying. Jake was tapping his phone like it owed him money. What the hell? Melissa Carter. TEDx Houston. Reinventing combustion. This has millions of views. I didn't say anything. Just reached for the tea again. Darlene was still standing in place, mouth open like she'd been hit with a brick mid-sentence. She blinked hard and stammered, But, but you said you were just fixing trucks? I raised my eyebrows, gave her a tiny shrug. Mom's voice came next, soft and distant, like she was talking to herself. You're meeting with the White House next week. Wednesday morning, I said, nodding. Briefing on emissions transition strategy. Cody read straight from his screen, loud enough for everybody to hear. 32 patents. Company valuation at $5.8 billion. DOE funding over $300 million. His voice cracked a little on billion. Rhonda gasped. This can't be right. It's right, Cody said. He didn't look away from his phone. She's got her name on more energy grants than MIT's lead lab director. Tanya turned her screen to face me. Is this you? You're standing at that conference podium in Geneva. World Energy Summit. Yeah, I said. 2 years ago. She stared like I had a third arm. My dad let out a low grunt. Well, damn. I told everyone you weren't cut out for math. I looked over and said, it was never about the math. It was about making engines work smarter. That shut him up. Uncle Frank chuckled like he didn't know what else to do. I mean, hell, guess them farm trucks paid off, huh? Tanya was still watching the video. You're speaking in front of world leaders like it's nothing. Wearing a power suit and talking about climate systems, you didn't even look nervous. I was, I said, sipping my tea. Just didn't show it. Jake shook his head, muttering, all this time. You let us talk down to you like you were running a damn oil change shop. I didn't let you, I said. Y'all just assumed I belonged under the hood instead of behind a patent. That one hit. Nobody laughed. Nobody argued. The Bluetooth speaker finally cut off. Someone must have bumped it in all the chaos. Now it was just the sound of scrolling, rustling plastic cups and wind moving through the trees. Rhonda looked up. Your last name's on the lab, Carter Dynamics. You own it. I nodded. Sole founder. Partnered with the government for testing and rollout. Darlene sat down hard in a folding chair. The beer sloshed in her lap, but she didn't flinch. I thought you were wasting your time out there, she mumbled. I didn't bother responding. Cody kept scrolling, jaw tight, eyes wide. You've been on panels, think tanks, university boards. Aunt Melissa, you could have been teaching at Georgia Tech. You could have been my professor. I smiled at him. Nah, I'd rather build something real. Mom cleared her throat but didn't speak. She looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to hug me or apologize. They all did. Every single one of them. They were finally realizing I wasn't who they'd decided I was 15 years ago. Darlene stood up slow, still holding that half-warm beer like it might steady her. She walked over, real careful, like she wasn't sure if I'd flinch or swing. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, voice soft, face unsure. I looked her right in the eyes. Y'all seem pretty confident I wasn't capable, I said. I didn't want to be rude. That shut her up. She nodded once, lips tight. Uncle Frank let out a whistle, shaking his head. God damn, he muttered again, like it was all he could come up with. You fixed climate change in your barn. Rhonda leaned forward in her chair, eyebrows raised. So what's next for your lab? You already changed the engine game. What now? Water into fuel. I smirked a little. Next phase is transport integration. Long-haul fleet testing starts this winter, then aerospace. Jake cleared his throat. Are you hiring? A few heads turned his way. Not in Perkins, I said. But we just opened a development wing in Tulsa. Got interns, techs, analysts, applications on the website. Cody lit up. Can I apply? I looked at him. You serious? Dead serious, he said. I don't care about the campus labs. I want to see the real stuff. The engine, the systems, the hands-on side. That made me smile for real. We'll talk. My dad rubbed the back of his neck, squinting toward the horizon like it held the answers. I thought you were wasting your time, he said, quieter than usual. Guess I was wrong. You weren't wrong about everything, I said, keeping my tone even. I do like keeping my hands dirty. Tanya turned her phone toward me. You could have been the keynote at Cody's school last semester, she said. They had some guy from a wind farm in Texas. You'd have blown the roof off that auditorium. I shrugged. They never asked. Darlene folded her arms. You're not going to rub this in. Nope, I said. You did enough talking for both of us. She took that hit without flinching. Okay, fair. Cousin Lyle piped up from the corner. How much did the government give you again? Cody answered before I could. Over 300 million. That's just DOE. Doesn't include private. Someone let out a low whistle. Rhonda raised her drink. Well, hell. To Aunt Melissa, she said. Lead inventor, global game changer, Oklahoma barn genius. That got a few chuckles and a clink of plastic cups. Even Mom finally looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, a proud one. She gave a tiny nod, barely there. You really did it. I nodded back. Cody stepped closer, eyes bright. When I start college, will you still be around to mentor me? As long as you stay curious, I said, and don't let folks tell you what you can't be. He grinned so wide it looked like his face might crack. For once, nobody had a punchline. No sarcasm, no jabs. They were finally listening. I grabbed my bag from the corner of the shop, the duffel already packed and ready. My flight out of Stillwater was in 2 hours, and I still had to check in with the DOE liaison before I boarded. The sun was dipping low, casting orange light across the oil-stained concrete. Darlene followed me a few steps toward the truck. She cleared her throat once, then again. We were wrong about you, she said. All of us. I didn't stop walking. I just gave her a quick glance and said, you weren't wrong about everything. I do like keeping my hands dirty. That made her laugh a little. Not a mean one this time, just honest. Cody came jogging over, practically bouncing with energy. He hugged me tight, caught me off guard for a second. I meant it, he said. I want to work with you one day. You'll earn it, I told him. Then I leaned down and looked him in the eye. Stay curious. Don't listen too hard to what folks think you can't do. He nodded like it was gospel. I climbed into my truck, tossed the bag in the passenger seat. As I pulled out onto the gravel, I heard voices behind me. Not arguing, not bragging, talking. Did you see the engine specs? She cut emissions by 70%. Imagine if we switched the ag fleet over by 2028. Rhonda, look up what torque those numbers are pushing. I smiled without meaning to. As I turned onto the road, I saw my dad at the edge of the driveway. He wasn't drinking, just standing there with his hands in his pockets, looking at the truck like it was the first time he'd ever seen it. He gave a little wave, nothing big, just a lift of his fingers. I returned it with 2 fingers off the wheel. The sun dropped lower behind the fields as I hit the main road. Heat still rising off the blacktop. The sky was turning gold. Tomorrow, I'd be standing behind a podium in D.C., walking a senator through the engine schematics that started under a tin roof with no heat and a cracked cement floor. I didn't need them to understand it all, but it sure felt good that finally they understood me.